Every Night is Game Night preview series number 12, Cerebria, with Viktor Peter and David Turczi. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the ENGN preview series. At this point, we are weekly. So many Kickstarters, so many great projects out there, and we have another one that is about, as this post, about 8 or 9 days into it. And this one I'm pretty excited about. I am personally a backer of this, so I am looking forward to chatting with Viktor Peter from Mindclash Games and developer at large David Turczi. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Hey.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Okay, so we have Viktor is from Budapest and David is from
right.
London, right?
Well, technically I'm from Budapest as well, but I live in London for a couple of years now.
Okay, and you left Viktor behind back there?
Yeah. I only met him after I left.
I don't see each other back then, so...
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we'll just get right into it. So on this show, we get into the games, and believe you me, we're going to talk about Cerebria, and answer as many questions as we can. But we also tell stories in the show. We also want to get to know the designers of the games that we love so much. So Viktor, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you? Because you are the co-founder of Mindclash Games, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mindclash Games was founded in 2014 with Richard, my business partner, and myself. And since then, now we are actually 5 people working full time. And our first game was Trickerion Legends of Illusion, which actually took 3 years to develop. And for the most part of these 3 years, we were working full time. And by the time we decided that it is a game that's probably good enough for Kickstarter, we quit our jobs and took a leap of faith, so to say. And yeah, hopefully, fortunately, it worked out really well, since Trickerion was a quite big hit back on Kickstarter back in 2015, I think. And yeah, since then we've been doing. We've been developing our own games. We are designers as well, but we are also publishers. We are moving more and more into the publisher direction. At least myself, I'm in charge of the business part, and Richard is in charge of the creative direction. But we also design games, of course, because that's our passion still. So. No matter where the big business takes us, game design will always have a soft spot in our hearts. So yeah, and Cerebria is our latest design. So that's
very cool.
That's on Kickstarter right now.
And David, you latched on to Mindclash with Anachrony, right?
So the story is that when they were just about to launch Trickerion, we were, and I say that fully ironically, the famous Hungarian game designers, because we were the first, when I say we, two of my friends and myself, we were the first ones to get a game redacted out into the international market through Kickstarter back in 2013. And I asked my co-designer, who was still living in Hungary, to round up all the designer wannabes from Hungary to see if any of them is worth working with. And he introduced me to Richard, and then through him Viktor, and they brought Trickerion to the gathering of my friends, and they showed it to me. It's like, what do I think? And I'm like, guys, you don't need my advice. This is perfect. Just go. And once the game became a huge hit as expected, then I walked up to them and said, by the way, I have another medium-heavy Euro worker placement engine building stuff, which is in somewhat similar genre as Trickerion. Do you want to do something with it? And I showed it to them, and their game designer eye just went, stars, please! And then they started bombarding me with ideas how to make the game more awesome. And up to that point, and even since then, I don't know if you've ever been process of a game development process, but it's always like the game designer has his crazy ideas that obviously don't work, and then the sensible people, the developer, the publisher, tell him cut a bit here, cut a bit there. Whereas these guys, they are so passionate about the idea that I had to be the sensible one. And to me, this makes the whole process working with them so much more fun, because instead of other people telling me to chill, it's finally me telling them to chill. And I just love that because they make me love the game more.
Yeah, it was a very fun ride all along. The games. I mean, Anachrony's base system is still the same. It's still what David showed us 3 years ago. But the theme and everything around it evolved a lot during our work together. And it was a great experience.
Well, when you say theme, it's more the setting than the theme, because it was always a time travel and time machine building game. But the post-apocalyptic setting and the exosuits were all the Mindclash guys' brilliant ideas.
Yeah, you guys have a really distinctive kind of style. So, like, we'll start to transition into Cerebria for a second. But the thing about, like, Anachrony that you first notice is just, it's so striking. There's nothing, in terms of art and graphic design, there's nothing quite like it on the market. And I think Cerebria kind of does the same thing. Is that a Mindclash thing? Is that, or just tell me a little bit about how you approach all that.
Not necessarily. We're just trying to avoid jumping on the actual bandwagons of zombies and pirates and stuff like that. And even if there are similar elements in our themes, we always try to spice it up with something special, with something unusual. And actually, for Cerebria, the inspiration was the Pixar movie Inside Out. You know that?
Mm-hmm.
And
I have a kid, so of course I know that.
Yeah. Actually, before we moved on to that topic, it was more like an angels versus demons theme. It was just a rough idea. We already knew that we would like something like this, some good versus evil kind of conflict. But then Inside Out gave us the idea that it could actually play in someone's mind, which would be really cool. But when it came up, we kind of instantly dismissed this idea that, okay, there must be a lot of games out there with this theme, but there weren't, and it was a surprise for us. So we said, okay, let's do it. I mean, and I'm very glad we chose to do it, because this theme, as specific as it sounds, it's actually really, really free and gives us a lot of design space and a lot of design freedom to implement our ideas, because it's quite abstract, and you can pretty much make everything work within these boundaries, because inside the mind, anything can happen pretty much.
Okay, so we're there. Let's talk a little bit about Cerebria as a mechanical experience. So it like you were saying before in the call, like, it's a hard game to explain, but because there's so much going on. But I think, like, at boiling it down to the essence of it, it's basically a competitive faction versus faction area control game, right? Is that kind of the basic
Yes.
way to describe it?
But
Exactly.
one thing I found is very important distinction to the hardcore Euro gamers, that it's an area control game, but not an area majority game. It has little bits of more of this, more of that. But when you tell me that it's area control, I'm immediately picturing I have 5 cubes on it, you have 6 cubes on it, whereas there's almost none of that in the game.
Mm-hmm. So what is? Maybe you could tell me a little bit more. What is in the game in terms of the areas and controlling them? So let's talk about, like, in a basic way, talking about the mechanics.
Yeah, of course. So the basic mechanics is that the landscape of Cerebria, so basically the mind, is divided to five realms, and between these five realms there are frontiers, and some of the slots of the realms and frontiers overlap, and you can place emotion cards on these frontiers and realms, on these slots. And the emotion cards have a certain number of intensity, and with this intensity they can control these realms and frontiers for you. And this gives you ongoing benefits in the game. It makes your actions more efficient and cheaper, and also it can help you in the scoring rounds, which occur every now and then, and it's triggered by the players. And
if I can just take a step back for a second, when you say, like, frontiers, are you talking about, like, literal zones on the board?
Yes. These what I mentioned are actual card slots on the board where emotion cards can go. We have lots and lots of different emotion types which have these intensity values I've been talking about. They can be increased and decreased by the other team as well. So if they really want to get rid of an emotion and its intensity, they can do that. But each emotion also has a special ability that's quite situational. But if you can abuse them well and find the situations where these emotions are useful, then you can gain the edge easily.
So then, if I'm kind of thinking of it correctly, you basically have cards, which are your resources on the game, and then you're playing those cards into these zones, and by doing that, that's how you get quote unquote control of these areas.
Yes, you can either play them into the zones or into the border between the zones. When Viktor mentioned the frontiers, that those are the borders between the zones, and that helps you differently than putting them into the zones. And the game has several objectives, which I think they're called aspirations in the game, and they are scored, as mentioned, player triggered. So it's not like after X actions do a scoring. We do a scoring when somebody does enough of a particular action to trigger a scoring. And that's part of the strategy. And so there is one saying control more realms. There is one that say control more borders. There is one saying control with most different type of cards. So it's not a simple I have 4, you have 5, boom. But there are these 7 objectives, and you're trying to be ahead in more of them.
Yeah, and the very nice thing about this system is that these cards, these objectives are changing dynamically. So once there was a scoring round, you change these cards. There are public objectives and also secret private objectives for each team. And so for example, in one scoring round, controlling the realms may have meant everything because that's how you scored. But then you draw another aspiration card, another goal, and controlling frontiers is all of a sudden not completely useless, but almost completely useless for the scoring, because you can it's no longer a condition for scoring. So what you have to do and what's scored in the game, it's changing dynamically, and it's making you adapt your strategy on the fly, which makes it a very, very intense experience.
And because there are, I think, 7 kind of objectives, and in the 2 or 3 games I had recently, all games had between 6 and 9 scorings, which means basically roughly every objective will be scored once or twice. That means that that it's not like I'm focusing my strategy on this, or it's more like riding the ever-changing landscape of Cerebria. And to me, the only other genre of game that has ever done anything like this is Dominant Species and its brothers. Mechanically, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. So, because it doesn't have worker placement, you don't count cubes on an area. It's different. So, and that's what made me, somebody who didn't design it, fall in love with it, is because it evokes the same kind of heavy dynamic area control feels, but isn't the Tigris and Euphrates with a twist, but something completely different.
Right. So like in Dominant Species, you do stuff and you get resources and do everything, but then there's these events that happen and it kind of resets things and you're scrambling.
Whereas Cerebria has absolutely no resets. You have X amount of actions you can do in a round, and then the round is over, and then you draw an extra card, and then the next round starts and you have X amount of actions to do again. So it's like in and out, in and out. There is no, oh my God, the big moment is coming. Every moment is big moment.
Okay, cool. So would you say, like, there's always that thing that people think, is this a strategic game or is this a tactical game? Would you say that that you can plan long-term strategies from like beginning to end of the game, or do things change too much when objectives are met, where you have to be a lot more tactical in what you're doing?
Well, compared to our previous games, it's a lot more tactical, I would say, and things are changing a lot more rapidly. But we added a system called the spirit upgrades. You are playing spirits. I haven't told about that before. Spirits are sort of like archetypes of the human personality. So, for example, empathy and harmony and love and things like that. And each spirit has his or her own actions. And you can upgrade these actions. So you can choose if you want to place your cards, your emotion cards on the board to control the realms and frontiers like we talked about, or you can discard these cards to permanently upgrade your spirit. And this is an aspect which is more strategic than tactical, because this is how you plan for the long term. Because if you build your spirit the right way, then it can give you long-term benefits, because these upgrades are actually permanent, so you don't lose them.
They make your actions more efficient, they make them stronger, they make them useful in more situations, these sort of things. Basically setting up your private little engine, but not in the kind of engine building sense that, for example, Anachrony does it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anachrony, I haven't played Anachrony, but I've heard it's basically like you're in it for the long haul type thing. So like you're kind of doing your thing and you're executing your strategy, and it's kind of in like, I mean, it's rich, but it's in a line like this one. You seem to really have to sidestep and account for what people are doing and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. The first, last week or 2 weeks ago, I taught it to 3 newbies, and my teammate, his first move, I finally understand the game. Look, I can do this, this, and that, and I'm like saving this many points, and I'm playing a super strategic game. And then my opponent went, I see. Made 2 moves, triggered the scoring, scored 2 points. I'm like, oops. So that's because we were so enthusiastic to get into the big strategy and miss the tactical, and they snagged 2 points from us. And then after that, it was like they go up a little bit, we go up a little bit, and then halfway through the game we were like, cool, now we should start paying attention to the strategic again. And by end game, our upgrade boards were so much stronger than theirs that it literally came down to one action, that if they can trigger one more scoring, then they win. If the game goes to end game scoring, then we win. And I unfortunately we lost, but still it was it was literally down to one action. So if they had one fortitude less, we would have won. So
I don't think we probably should mention the scoring system. You guys have this kind of cool way of looking at it where it's these identity fragments. So I imagine a situation where someone completes an objective, they get to put an identity fragment down in their color, and then it kind of builds upward.
Exactly. So think of the identity as an actual tower that's building in the middle of the board, and it represents basically the developing personality of this person whose mind we are in. And obviously Bliss and Gloom, the 2 sides that are struggling for the control of this mind, are trying to influence his identity. So the identity consists of either Bliss or Gloom pieces, fragments basically. So at each scoring, Bliss or Gloom gets to build one fragment piece, depending on who does better with these objective cards that we've been talking about. And actually these fragments can trigger various emotion abilities. For example, they can also give you ongoing bonuses if you manage to score the big fragment, because we have big and small fragments, and the big fragments are actually a permanent bonus for the rest of the game. So it's a scoring system. It's a very, very visible and nice way to keep track of the current game state, but it's also interwoven into the game in a way that you can gain permanent benefits from it.
Cool.
Little development secret about that. They showed me the scoring system a few weeks or months back, and I was like, wow, that looks super good. What does it do that I score 2 points, you score 3 points wouldn't do? And giving credit where credit's due, the guys spent several days coming up with a good answer to that question, and they have. So it is really scoring system plus a bit more unique stuff.
Very cool. So this game also has miniatures. If you get the bigger version, I think it's called the Origins version. But then you can also get a standee version. How do these little standees interact with everything? Because I heard about the card play and some powers, but then
they
are the player pieces representing your spirit. Something Victor
mentioned. Those are the spirits, exactly. Those are the player pawns, basically.
Okay. So
they can be standees. They can be standees or miniatures, but they do the same thing. You can move around the board with them, go wherever you are needed the most. You can invoke emotions. You can interact with emotions already on the board. You can get more willpower. You can.
Because if you're on a specific side of the board, then you can only influence that side of the board.
Yeah, there's a very strong spatial element to the game. Positioning and moving all matters a lot, and you have to move around constantly and adapt to the situation the game throws at you. A game and your opponent's team throws at you. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioning, like, I love the little points where, you know, you mentioned how the opponent does this and that and the third. How aggressive is this game? Because like you think a Euro game, and I hear a lot of Euro stuff going on, but Euro games tend not to be very aggressive. Like, is it a little bit more kind of take that in this thing, or is there something else going on?
It's a good question, because I keep hearing people keep hearing it from people that they're associating from area control to direct conflict and combat, but it's not the case in Cerebria. It's more like an arms race. But you can also, there is one action with which you can attack the opponent's emotions, but it's very rarely downright destroying them. It's more like weakening them whenever it's really needed. And you cannot do that by default. You have to actually make an upgrade to be able to attack the opponent's emotions.
And once you and because it's something we didn't mention, each emotion has like a suit, like a different color of card, and each player by upgrades can pick up to 2 of the 4 suits that they can attack. Which means that if I see that your board you can upgrade the red and the green suit, and I summon a blue card next to you, then it's gonna be a lot cheaper for you to do something of your stuff than to attack mine. So when you say, does it have direct attack? Yes. Is it take that-ish? No. Because to me, take that is I can randomly screw you up and you didn't see it coming.
Okay.
Whereas here, once we fumbled through the first round and oh crap, let's never do that again. Once we've been through that phase, after that we were never surprised when we were attacked.
Okay, so you always saw it coming.
It's almost like, okay, they can spend 2 points powering themselves up there or 3 points attacking us, but if they do attack us, we can still come back over here with 2 points of our own.
Yeah, and it's important that the quell action, which is sort of like the combat, it's not random at all. And usually you see it coming and you can prepare for it. So yeah, I would say it's not a very vindictive game, even though it's pure area control.
Okay, so there is a tug of war. I guess would that be like you were saying?
That's a very nice way of putting it. Exactly.
I was looking for that word for about 3 minutes now.
That's why they pay me the big bucks over here. Okay, so I think that's unless there's different aspects of gameplay you think we've missed, because I'm about to unleash David on the solo mode.
Sure.
Okay, we're here. Let's talk about solo. So this is a competitive game, as we were talking about. You got this tug of war, back and forth, arms race type deal going on. I'm really eager to hear how you're incorporating solo into something that's this interactive.
I promise I'm not gonna go off rambling on other projects, but because traditionally I'm not a solo gamer. All our solo gamer fans and your people listening to you are all gonna go, but no, I've never been a solo gamer because what I enjoy is trying and usually failing to outsmart my opponent. It took me years to even warm up to the idea of co-op games, but that's a different point. And traditionally, Euro solos have always been achieve this much in X actions or beat at least X score with this kind of difficulties. Then came Viticulture and the Automa, and that simulated playing pieces to the board. And I played it once or twice, and it was, this is almost perfect. And I spent long and hard trying to figure out why it's not perfect. And what was missing for me, why I still didn't enjoy playing solo games, even post-Automa, is that solo needs to be simple, easy to execute. Otherwise, I might as well be playing war games, which I sometimes do. Sue me. They have to feel like the multiplayer game. There are lots of games that have a solo mode, which is a different game. I hate that. It's like, then is that game better or worse than the main one? And it has to feel like playing an opponent and not just beating my own score. And that's Automas did that perfectly. What they didn't do is that the bot's moves never made sense. I don't know if you've played any of the Euro Automas, but they're always like block some random spots, score some points, go on.
Yeah, we're actually big fans of the Automa here on our podcast. We've talked about what Morton is quasi friend of ours.
I absolutely adore the work put into, like, it's trailblazing, but for me it wasn't enough.
Right, yeah, because it's a deck at the end of the day, and you know, and
no,
like
I don't mind the deck.
RNG,
I do decks as well. The problem is that on turn 1 in Viticulture, I can't say I don't have to do the wine action this round because I know that the bot is not going to do the wine action next turn because it's blank random whether the bot will do the wine action next round or not.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I want to outsmart my opponent, which in this case is a deck. And that approach worked well in Anachrony, and people told me that, wow, I love your solo mode. I'm like, really? Then I had the right idea. And then the second game I made a bot with a different publisher called Petrichor. That was an area control game, but it only had 4 actions, so it was fairly easy to simulate. So when the idea for making a bot for Cerebria came up, I was like, so I need to make an interactive, smart bot and try not to use 7-page long flowcharts. And when I designed the actions that the bot can take, I did draw huge flowcharts and then cut out the slack. Like, we don't need to care about that. It'll put it there. It's fine. And right now, the finished version is almost, I think, either almost or even more than twice as long as the solo rules for Anachrony. So I definitely didn't manage to compress it that much. The way it works is you get a deck of cards, I think 14 or 15 cards, with representing either a particular action or a combination of actions. And because in Cerebria, in the first round, you take 9 actions. In the second round, you take 10 actions, 11, etc. And in the first round, you deal 8 or 9, depending on the difficulty, 8 or 9 cards. And every third card is face up. Okay. So that's the first twist I did opposed to the flipper card, is that every third card is face up. Therefore, because you're going to do 2 or 3 actions on your turn, and then the bot will do 2 or 3 actions on his turn, so that you can look at it, it's like, can I let it get to the third action? What's the third action? Oh, no, we can't let him do that action now. So you'll go and only do 2 actions so that the bot doesn't get to trigger his third card just yet. Mm-hmm. And this sort of, so that's one phase where I wanted to outsmart. The other one is that a third of the deck is called a card called Special. Obviously, it'll have a better name once Viktor and the guys have the pass at it. And what Special does is that reveal the objective that the bot is working on, and it has a not big but a slightly bigger if then else kind of flowchart, which will always do the best possible move. So you know that the bot will focus on its objective, and as soon as you find out what that objective is, you know it's coming for you. Mm-hmm. It's not like it'll randomly block a spot that may or may not screw up your objective. You know it's directly going to come for you. So, and how can you min-max your turn that even after the bot coming after you are still in the lead?
So would it be accurate to say that this is kind of like Automa Plus? Would that be? Like it's basically the Automa type system, but with some tweaks and some...
Honestly, I think it has more to do, at least its design has more to do with the lighter war games. I play a lot of Labyrinth. I've played a few games of Churchill recently, with the philosophy of Automa on how to keep it simple.
Right.
So I think my design style is similar to the Automa, but my design content is a lot more inspired by the war games because they have a lot more decision space.
Mm-hmm. Viktor, have you played the Automa, and are you good at beating it, or does it give you trouble?
No, not yet, because we are working. We are very busy playtesting something else that we are gonna reveal pretty soon. But
Oh, exclusive.
Now,
Okay,
yeah,
so
I can tell you more about that, but it's gonna be revealed in like 1 or 2 days. So
okay, yeah. If you don't feel like telling us, then giving us the exclusive. I'm kidding. Uh, no, this has been great. It sounds like the Automa, or I'm calling it an Automa, but is there
It's
is
called
there
the subconscious.
the subconscious?
Yes, I wanted to call it the sleepwalkers, but turns out people sleepwalk and not emotions. Emotions bubble up from the subconscious. So then I turned the theme around on that.
And then for the subconscious, is it like, does it play either bliss or gloom? Does it replace one of those things, or is it its own thing?
Well, no. Like you play bliss or gloom, and then the automa muppets the other.
Okay, got it.
Because it ignores the uniqueness between bliss and gloom. So you do bliss or gloom, and then it does a generic opponent against you, and obviously use the other team's pieces for it.
Okay, so it doesn't like emulate the different things that bliss and gloom can do. It's just it's doing its own thing. That's like
it's basically racing you for all the objectives, and those conditions in it are built in that if it can race you for a current objective, it'll do so. And if it can't, then it'll generally race you for conditions. Which means that even if it's not actively kicking your butt, it's still, in the long term, it's going to be worse for you. And I think what playtesting will show, I've played it like half a dozen times before, and constantly just making it easier and easier before sending it on, because my copy was needed elsewhere. But I already got a couple of people who played Anachrony a lot in solo, and they volunteered that as soon as they get a copy of the prototype, they'll play it. What I expect is that I made 4 or 5 difficulty levels and suggested playing on the second one. I think I'll need to create a few easier difficulties, because the boss was definitely like kicking my butt. So, but people who play a lot more solo game than I am always come up with better strategies, which is why I made harder strategies so that they don't run out of harder difficulties so that they don't run out of the game. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that you hope that you made the bot reasonable. I play it X number of times, and then once it comes on the wild, it gets played 100x number of times, and somebody managed to play Anachrony's bot in such an unsensible way, like such a silly way, that it always beats the bot. And they posted it on BGG, and my reaction was like, do you want to beat the bot or do you want to play the game? and if you play the game, then it's completely fine. And I don't know, hopefully this bot doesn't have that kind of problem, but we'll see. It's the best playtesters are unfortunately the masses, which is always the trick to find when a game is ready. That's always the stressful bit.
It sounds like there's a lot in there for the soloist, some various difficulty levels, along with there being a lot in there for the multiplayer as well.
The way I tweak the difficulty, it's simply because, as I said, the player always takes 9 actions on the first turn, 10 on the second, etc. And on easy difficulties, the bot takes 1 less action than the players. On medium difficulties, the bot takes the same number of actions as a player. And on hard difficulties, it takes 1 more action than the players. And then the other one is that it cheats, and for every X wasted action, it automatically completes an objective. And the higher difficulty you play, that X gets smaller and smaller.
Okay.
So the cheating factor and the number of actions are the difficulty scale. So let me know if anybody can beat it with X equals 1.
So I think that I've gotten all my questions answered. I'm really excited about this. I hope that people have, gotten a good sense for how this game really plays. I know it was a little bit difficult because it took you guys a while to get the video playthrough going. It sounded like that was a little bit of an adventure.
Well,
yeah, it's all sorted now. We have a very nice full playthrough from Mindclash Games, and we have more coming next week, so it should be fine now. But yeah, it took a bit longer than we expected, but such is life.
That's right. So yeah, hopefully we gave you enough information to go off of whether you're going to decide to back or not. But yeah, I think that's everything that I have. Unless there's any last things that you'd like to share with the people before we sign off.
No, actually, thank you for the opportunity. This has been great, and I hope your audience will like it.
Nope. Hope I haven't rambled too much. And I want to. Every time I meet any solo gamer, I tell them thank you. I find them a very grateful and reliable bunch of gaming people, and which is why even though I'm not one of you guys, I will make it my mission to keep making fun and interesting games solo compatible and worthwhile.
And that's going to do it for another episode of the preview series. We'd like to thank David and Peter for stopping by and giving us a little bit of their time. Cerebria is one of those beautiful games that's a little bit hard to grok on first viewing, so it's awesome that they were able to take some time, answer a lot of good questions, and especially Anthony from AntLab Games, good on you for finishing that playthrough. That was really, really helpful in terms of helping me, kind of figure the game out myself, and I would like to point other people in that direction as well. So that's going to do it for me. We are going to be back sooner rather than later. So until then, later, everybody.